Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of January 2024. I hope you're well and Happy New Year and all that sort of thing. I'm using the Edmund de Lac Tarot for you today. Here it is. Before the reading begins, if it resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. Link number 2 is to my private community. That's the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. A bit of hair stuck on my hand. So if that's something that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. The third link is to 3-month overviews that I've done for each of the signs. If you've had a look at the astrology of April, you might see why it is that I have, or you might know why it is that I've done that. I think that it's really important that we spend some time really investing in the run-up to that. So I wanted to break down those 3 months specifically and look at them in more detail than we might do in a 6-month overview, which is what I usually do. So the link for that, third one, in the description box. It's all explained and everything in there. So if that's something you want, avail yourself of that link also. Right. Virgo, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. I have 3 cards for Virgo, please. All right, first one's toppled to the floor. Let's have a look, see what we've got. We have the Empress in your recent past. Current energy for Virgo, please. We've got the Devil, and it's definitely on the turn, so we're going to leave him like that. And what's coming towards Virgo, please? There we go. We've got the 5 of Wands and the 7 of Wands. Okay. That's somewhat combative for the energy of January. Page of Wands is at the bottom of the deck, though. And there are lots of ways in which this combative energy can play out, and they don't necessarily have to be negative, for sure. Let's get the clarifiers out and see what's going on before I say anything else. So tell me about the Empress, please, for Virgo. We've got the High Priestess and the Emperor. Goodness. All right. Tell me about this twisty devil. There's 1 and there's 2. So we have the 8 of Pentacles and Death in reverse. And what about these 2 Wands cards here? Oh, goodness. We have the 2 of Cups. We have whatever that is, the 9 of Pentacles. 1 more card, please. Thank you. 9 of Wands. Okay, so we go 5, 7, 9. Interesting. We have the World card sitting at the end there. Now, while I mess about with these cards and put them in a way that is not obnoxious to look at, let's just take a minute to see what's playing out here. We've got some big major arcana energies that are talking to you and asking for some sort of response, or have been at least. When we come into January, the energy is much more about what we intend to do, about what we have worked out, what we have seen, what we've been facing down, perhaps even. Sorry, I'm still getting used to where the camera is actually on this particular tarot cloth. So I'm going to put these where you can pretty much more or less see them. There you go. I know some people like to be able to have a look. So, the good news is, in some ways, the good news, full stop, is that the majority of major arcana energy has already happened at you and you're kind of in the process of wrestling with right now. The majority of January is spent in putting, as I said, what you've learned into action. And I think you should probably expect to meet some resistance. Now, whether that resistance comes by way of another person, that's entirely possible, or whether it's some sort of internal resistance, which is also highly possible, or whether in fact it is a combination of the two, which is also possible, will be different for each of you. But let's start over here. So we have the Empress card, we have the High Priestess, and we have the Empress. So already we have 2 cards here, known as the get this the right way around, the earthly parents of the Fool. The High Priestess and the Magician, conversely, are the heavenly parents of the Fool. But the thing that they have in common is whenever these sets of parents appear, we have the implication of the Fool. The Fool is getting ready to come to Earth and be born in some sort of way. And I feel like that's where you're kind of wrestling your way to, although we're not quite there yet. The World card is over here. So between now and the end of January, what we're doing is sort of taking care of business and tidying things up, ready for the arrival of the new cycle, ready for perhaps, well, even a need for you to throw yourself into the void somewhat, you know, trusting that the universe has your back and all that kind of thing. But we'll concentrate on here. You know, the Emperor is a card of getting your stuff together. It's an Aries card, but I always do feel like it's got Capricornian vibes about it. It depends in what vein the Emperor's showing up, I think. But it's principally about taking control, and it's about getting systems and things in place, sometimes even hierarchies, to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing when. And I would imagine in your case, Virgo, it's making sure that you know what you're doing when, or you did know what you were doing when. This High Priestess, the heavenly mother of the Fool, it seems to be almost bringing a message to the earthly parents to let them know that the baby is on the way, the Fool is on the way. She even has a little script in her hand there, you know, it's almost like she's bringing some sort of message. But when we break down what they're talking about in their component parts, like I said, we've got the Emperor here, structure and planning and where are we going, how are we taking care of things. And then the Empress, which is this much more nurturing and abundant energy, is ruled by Venus. Right? We have Venus and Mars here with these two parents. So this could relate specifically to your spirituality and how you are incorporating more of it into your life. Perhaps this was something like a New Year's resolution for you, whereby you're like, right, I'm going to start having a practice. I'm going to do daily tarot draws, or I'm going to do, I don't know, sign myself up for some sort of course in doing some other type of different modality, you know, I don't know, Reiki or something like that, right? Because this Page of Wands here it's all about preparation. And this is what I'm feeling with the High Priestess, the Emperor, and the Empress card together. They're all talking about preparing for something. But I'm wondering if what's happening here is there's a little bit of jumping the gun. It's like, oh, we're getting ready for the birth, but we haven't tied up, I don't know, what we're going to do when we have to go on maternity leave. We haven't even told our employer yet, right? It's got that kind of vibe to it somewhat. This month's about tying up the business. It's about completing the cycle properly so that the Fool can come in and take his rightful place as the beginning step of something. We see that same kind of message being played out here in your current energy. We've got the Devil, who's showed up in a very twisty fashion here, but definitely leaning more towards the losing of fear position than the upright, trapped, stuck, held hostage to, I don't know, an inner critic that's really quite savage, something like that, right? But what it's saying here is there's an awareness, I think, from you that there is more work to do. And what's really interesting about the delicate little dance that's being played between these two sets of cards is that where all of this is focused on the new, here it's an awareness that the new doesn't come along without the tying up of the old, and that there is more work to do in some way or another, right? Because this Death card speaks about transformation, but he is reversed. Now, the arrival of the Fool into your life will transform it, but there's a certain amount of preparation that needs to be undergone before that happens. The Death card here feels like it's a little bit blocked, like you know that there's work to do, you know that there are demons to face, whether they are internal or external, that there's some sort of attention to detail. And this is a Virgo card here. There's some sort of mastery that needs to be taken in hand, so that whatever is blocking the energy of death from overhauling the situation gets a chance to come through. What's really interesting is that there are no Aquarius cards on the table. There are, in fact, no Swords cards whatsoever on the table. No air. Because the Devil could represent Capricorn. And we are reaching the end of Pluto in Capricorn. Well, for 9 months at least anyway. And then we've got a 6-week transit where it comes back in again. But it's the second of 3 ingresses. that Pluto is going to do into the sign of Aquarius, and by extension then leaving Capricorn behind. Tell me about this, devil. Right, so here we go. We've got a whole clusterfuck of cards going on here. We have the Ace of Wands, we have the Queen of Wands, we have the Page of Swords, some air finally to balance this out, and we have the Hanged Man. Now, given that all of these cards have come out to speak to the presence of the devil, who is almost inverted but not quite, which means you've almost dealt with all of the fears and all of the things that keep you stuck and trapped and all that sort of thing, but not quite. An awareness that there is still work to do. And the work, I think, is on why there's an aspect of yourself that is blocking this transformation. Now, the reasons for that could be complex and there could be myriad. And I think that for most of you Virgos, you have more of an idea of it than perhaps you're willing to let on at this point. We've got the Ace of Wands with the Queen there. We know that there are new starts that you want to bring in, right? We're getting ready for the Fool for sure. There are new patterns of behavior that you want to engage in. I feel like the Queen of Wands here is recognizing where certain patterns of behavior that we've had before have not been helpful. They have not pushed us on to, you know, where we want to go, the next chapter of our life, right? The Queens for me always do a really good job of trying to make sense of whatever suit they represent. So making sense of your own behaviors and recognizing that some of them need to change, and there is, you know, new creativity, new passion, new inspiration that you want to inject into your life. This Page of Swords feels almost reflective. Like he's shown here clearly eavesdropping on a conversation and looking rather startled by what he's hearing. And I wonder if the Page is the current mindset, right? The awareness of what needs to change, and we've got change highlighted there again with the Hanged Man, the second of two Pisces cards that we have on the table. And whenever Pisces comes up, I always do think that there's usually a way in which that energy is asking us to dissolve things that separate us, things that keep us conflicted, things that put us into division with other people, right? Pisces is all about breaking things down. We've got the idea of turning yourself upside down so that you can see the world from a different perspective. But what seems to be really difficult is, I know this thing, and I know this thing, and I know this thing. What I'm having trouble doing is weaving it all together. That's how it feels to me life is for you at the moment. And we've got the Six of Swords at the bottom of the deck there. How does one coalesce all of the understandings that one has and have it result in a different person at the end of it? That's what I feel like you're struggling with here, Virgo, because I don't think that you have any argument to make with the imminent arrival of the Fool, the Ace of Wands, and the desire to do things differently and show up in the world differently. The desire actually, to change your mindset and the way that you see the world full stop. And yet it just doesn't seem to be gelling for you. The Six of Swords says that there's something that needs to be left behind, and the Eight of Pentacles says there's definitely more to be worked on. But until you crack the code, if you will, because it does feel like there's something missing in the equation here, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to walk away, create the space, and let death move through and transform everything that it's trying to do. There's some sort of residual fear about something. And I'm not sure if it comes down to the fact that you were hoping that you would feel braver by the time it came to actually making the changes. That there was perhaps an assumption on your part that having gone through the process of getting to the point where you're ready to take a leap of faith, that it would just feel easier. But of course, the lesson of the leap of faith is that it isn't easy, and that's why it's a leap of faith, of course. When we move into January proper, we have the Five of Wands and we have the Seven of Wands. Now, these two energies can speak to conflict, and I feel comfortable in asserting at this point that there's some serious internal conflict going on right here. But this Seven of Wands is more of a defensive energy. I mean, sometimes it can be protective, and we're kind of trying to look after things. I mean, maybe this is where the schism is occurring for you, right? There's a desire to look after, to protect, and that's possibly yourself and other people too. But there's also a fear about what is being asked of you in the act of doing that in the first place. Let's clarify this Two of Cups and see why that's here. Why is the Two of Cups here? We've got the Eight of Cups. Okay. And two reversals, which are the Ace of Cups in reverse and the Moon in reverse. Right. Okay. We've got the King of Wands at the bottom of the deck, and I'm actually really pleased to see him here, simply because these two cards are Leo cards. We have Saturn in Leo and we have Mars in Leo. Now, are these two having a bit of a face-off, and is that what is causing the problem? Right, Saturn would represent the old, the stable, the well-known, and certainly the well-travelled road that sometimes ends up being like a fucking circular motorway or something. Like we just go round and round and round on the same thing until we break out and we do something differently. Mars, conversely, wants to spread their wings, fly, get out there, do new things. When these two face off against each other, internally that can be quite difficult. But here we have the King of Wands, Leo, who seems to be somewhat able to marshal the dispute. And this is your internal King of Wands. There's a bravery here whenever this card shows up, right? There's a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of dynamism, right? We take for granted that belongs to the realm of the Leo. But actually this belongs to everyone, and it's something that you can tap into as and when you need to. When you understand that the secret is not that Leo as an energy is not scared of anything, but Leo as an energy is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I remember reading a report on a study that had been done where, they've got a group of people, like 100 people or something like that, and they gave them, they monitored them while they were taking big risks, right? And everybody in the study had been given the opportunity to change their life in some sort of major way, ostensibly to improve their financial position or something like that. And they monitored the responses of the people, or they monitored the lives of the people who had chosen to take the risks involved and those who had not. And 100% of the people who had taken the risk were glad that they had done so, even if it had led to a decrease in, I don't know, the amount of salary that they earned or something like that. And there was a fairly high number in the other set of people who regretted not taking the opportunity when they had it. And I thought it was really interesting because risk-taking behaviour generally, right, exposes us to new experiences that we might not have in another way. And there's a possibility that we can lose, there's a possibility that we fall down, but there's a possibility that even in the act of doing that, we take something really valuable, we take some sort of really useful lesson from that helps us later on down the line. I think what's going on here is a face-off against the possibility of the old and the certainty of the new. Now, whether this relates to a relationship that's outside of you or not, I'm not sure. I feel like it's a little bit more to do with a desire not necessarily to get too intimate with people, because you're you want to fiercely guard your independence. There's something about the situation that you're in right now that's having you closing down on the possibility of taking a risk, the possibility of expanding your horizons, because it has that element of uncertainty about it. I mean, for some of you, it might be that there's a new relationship on the horizon and you're like, fuck, I don't want to go down this road. I'm not interested in this. I need to maintain my independence, whatever. But I just came across a really fucking good quote, actually. No, I don't need to use it here. I'll save it for another time. But it's interesting that the Eight of Cups has come up around the idea of relationships and intimacy, full stop. I don't get the feeling that there are many of you who are actively leaving a relationship. It could be that there are some people who are starting to see that maybe the relationship isn't the right thing for them. That's a subset of Virgos, possibly. But I think for far more Virgos, there's the kind of like, do I want to put myself out there and open myself up so that other people can actually see me? And the answer to that, on one hand, is yes, because I want the full and I want the new experiences and I want to get out of the cave and everything that we've spoken about before in the last couple of years of Virgo readings. At the same time, there's something so confrontational about the idea of that you seem to have ended up in a state of analysis paralysis, like not being sure what the right route is to take here. What I think is really interesting about this moon in reverse and this Ace of Cups in reverse is that the moon in reverse is actually revealing to you where there is a problem in the relationship with yourself, whether it's in terms of how much you trust yourself. And that trust goes right across the board. Like, do you trust yourself to take a risk and still be in a state of gratitude if that risk does not play out the way that you anticipate it doing, or the way that you'd hoped it had when you took the risk? Do you trust yourself that you can learn something from it, that you can recover from that situation, that it will not lead to a 3-year rapid reversal away from people while you lick your wounds and heal again? The Eight of Cups is moving emotionally away from a situation, and this one particularly for me highlights the idea of shame. Moving away from the emotion of shame in situations. It's shame around the act of being seen, Virgo. Now, I don't think shame is a useful emotion at all, but it's a very easy thing to say that, and it's a very difficult thing to work with, and I know that firsthand. But what's being highlighted here is how you don't quite trust yourself as much as you could do, or you don't quite trust the universe, you don't quite trust any of these things. This is where the state of fear is coming from. And this is why the King of Wands is here to help you. All of this preparation that's going in here has been very earnest because you genuinely want this change. What's that? I came across an interesting phrase the other day, and I can't remember what it was. I actually wrote it down because I thought it was so awesome. It's something burst. I cannot remember what it was, like evolution burst or something. It's not that. It was something like this. But it's the act of doubling down on a particular thing just before you give it up. So if you've ever tried to give up smoking, right, from the point where you decide that you're going to give up smoking, suddenly the amount of cigarettes that you smoke seems to double instantly. Or when you decide that you're going to stop eating cake for, stop eating chocolate for Lent or something like that. And then all of a sudden you have to cram as much chocolate into yourself as possible. It's almost like your subconscious is like, oh God, I need more of these things because I'm about to be in a state of going without. I need to stock up on it in some sort of way. To try and find the piece of paper that I wrote that phrase down in. But it's quite useful here because I feel like this is what your inner critic is doing, right? It's throwing up this monumental doubt, conflict. I'm saying, do you really want this though? Because this is taking you from a place of certainty where you know that you are, and even if you know that you don't want to stay here, at least you know where you are within that situation. Compared to endless potential, which is what the Fool is. But within that is baked not only the potential for incredible success beyond your wildest imaginings, but also incredible failure beyond your greatest imaginings. And I think this is what you're wrestling with. It's a fear of being seen. It's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of losing certainty. There's a certain amount of shame built in. And I'm not sure if the shame is around the fear, or whether the shame is somehow in a complex way baked into the idea of what you're leaving behind in the first place, in which case that would be very much back here. There's more work to be done before the transformation is complete. This Nine of Pentacles and Nine of Wands is an interesting combination. As we say with the nines, like not quite there yet, a little bit more to go, because the tens are what represent completion and the end of a cycle. When the tens arrive, that's the point where you can start thinking on the aces. You can start thinking on the Fool. Same with the World. This is tying up the loose ends around how you manage your behaviours and what you do and what you consider to be valuable. And I guess the question is what you have right now worth so much that it offsets the possibility of you having something else? That's the question that I would ask you this month, Virgo, because I think the answer is no. In which case we can recognize this inner critic or this, this panic reaction for exactly what it is, which is that small part of you, call it your inner child or whatever you like, that's trying to keep you safe. I think that it's a quiet month for you, Virgo. I'm going to dig into this more in the extended. So if you're going to join me over there, we'll talk about it then. I think it's a quiet month because you're giving over an awful lot of your RAM to trying to work out what is actually happening here. I did say I thought it was interesting that there weren't very many swords on the table, and I think it's because when the mind gets involved, it just seems to end up having you spiral into overthinking. Whereas what you're trying to do here is get to the root of something quite emotional that involves a change of behaviours, a change of the way that you live, a change of experience in some sort of way, because that's what the wands are all about, and the wands are all over this. Fire is all over this reading. But so is water, and to a degree so is earth. And I commend you on not over-employing the swords in the resolution of this. But at the same time, I think you might possibly be overcomplicating the situation and making it a little, as my daughters would say, it's not that deep. It ain't that deep. Which is to say, it comes down to bravery. And that question, is what you have now so valuable that it's worth ignoring the possibility of having anything else? That's the question that I would have you sit with, meditate on, even draw cards on, or whatever, if you read tarot or whatnot. Because the answer is no. Everything in your preparatory behaviour here is saying no. This is just a panic snapback, the extinction burst. That's what it's called. When something gets stronger and overdone, literally just before you're about to stop it. We got the World card at the end. We're coming to the end of a cycle. It's completing. It's reached its full circle. It's time for you to go with the Fool. And the Fool is almost here. Not quite, but almost here. All right. I'm going to go over to the extended now and go and have a dig around in there. You're very welcome to join me if you'd like to do so. You can join on Vimeo. You can join Circle, or you can go and watch on Vimeo. It's up to you. If neither of those apply, don't panic about the fact that you're panicking. Understand that this is a very natural part of change. It's a very natural part of leaving behind something that is certain and familiar and yet unfulfilling. And that is completely normal to have some resistance to that. There's nothing weird going on here, Virgo. You're doing great. But ask yourself that question and sit with the answer for a while. All right. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.